Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a card featuring a new digital stamp from Gerda Steiner Designs called Kittens and Stockings. And in this digital stamp you actually get 3 separate kitten images. I'm going to be making cards with 2 of the images today. I think they're all really cute and I'd make cards with all of them, but I just wanted to make sure this video didn't get too long, so I'll show you assembling one card, but I'm going to use the same principle and the same techniques to make all of the cards. To color the cats, I'm going to choose to make them black because I want to keep the colors very simple and not add too many different colors to the card. And so I am using W7, W5, and W3 to color the cat. I use my darkest colors down where the cat meets the stocking and then blend it out with lighter colors. To color the stocking, I'm going to be using some reds, R46, R35, and R27. And they're really far apart, but having those similar numbers on the end allows the saturations to be close enough that it actually works. And in terms of darkest to lightest, it's actually going to be R46 as the darkest, R27 as the medium tone, and R35 as the lightest in this case. And you'll see that I scribbled off to the side there a little bit just to check that and confirm that what I thought would be true. And I'll use the same kind of coloring when I color the second image, but I'm not going to be showing you that. I start with the darkest, move to the medium, blend it all out with the lightest, then go back with the darkest and add some extra shadow just for a greater sense of depth on these. In terms of the green areas of the stocking, I'm just going to color them solid with G09, and that's because I'm going to be later covering them with stickles anyway, and so I'm not too worried about the coloring on those. I will also be covering the kind of fuzzy part at the top of the stocking with some frosted lace stickles later, so I'm not too worried about it. After I finish coloring, I'm going to fussy cut out the image. I'll run a black distress marker around the edges to make sure the edges are a little bit more clean. Then it's time to assemble the rest of my card. I'm starting with a stitched rectangle from Lawn Fawn, and I cut it out of craft paper. And I want the kitty to be hanging from some string. And so I decided that I could take a die that had a curve in it and trace it. You could also take any large circular object, or you could freehand a curve if you felt comfortable. But I knew that the speech bubble die from Lawn Fawn had a nice slight curve to it that I thought would look appealing on the card. And so I'm just laying it on the card to make sure I like it. I'm choosing to create 3 lines because, as you've heard me say many times before, things tend to look better in groups of odds. Groups of 3 are particularly pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to have 2 that cross and 1 on the bottom because them interacting with each other should also be pleasing to the eye. And if I did it again, and when I did do it again, because I did make a second card with all the same steps, I would not use my Copic multi-liner pen. I would just use a regular pen or even a pencil, because the Copic multi-liner is such a thin, fine line, but in order to achieve that, it has that special nib on the end, which I find you have to be really careful to make solid lines with. So once I have that down, I'm thinking about the basic design for the rest of the card and knowing that I'll want to have the stocking hanging from one of the top bits of string, because in the bottom right hand corner I'm going to want to put my sentiment, and so I want to leave plenty of room for the sentiment and some extra embellishment. When I made the second card, I did the snowflake stamping before I did any gluing, so that way it's like the gluing of the embroidery floss here, so that way if I wanted to create some snowflakes underneath the embroidery floss it would work out better. But this first time through you're kind of seeing the card as it happened. To glue on this embroidery floss, I'm using Multi-Medium Matte from Ranger. I particularly like this because it does truly dry matte, and you won't notice any little bits of leftover that have kind of, I don't know the word for it, but like splooged out, like leaked out from underneath the embroidery floss. And so even though you can see there's lots of white glue hanging out from the embroidery floss, once it dries, it will be stuck down really, really well, and you won't be able to see that at all. And we'll come back and try to remove it a little bit and wipe it away. But even when you do wipe it away and you smear it on the paper, you don't have to worry about that causing any kind of negative effect on your final project. In the past, I'd used glossy accents to glue things down when I needed a strong liquid adhesive, but I didn't like how you would see that glossy finish when you were done. So I decided that I will pop up my sentiment. This is Newton's Curious Christmas, the stamp set there, and in the stamp set, it has the sentiment, Dear Santa, define good. And I thought of that sentiment immediately upon seeing the stamp set, because these cats are being mischievous, just like Newton is in some of the stamps from that stamp set, and so I knew that that sentiment would work out perfect. And so basically what I'm going to do is have the sentiment be in the same craft cardstock, but to kind of differentiate the sentiment panel from the background panel, I'm going to be stamping some red snowflakes. These snowflakes are from the Newton's Nook set, Beautiful Blizzard. I absolutely love this set. I think that the detail on these snowflakes is stunning. And even though I'm stamping in distress ink, which is not the best ink for solid stamping, it still looks really good and you don't have any issues. So I like the idea that you can get these really beautiful crisp images with basically any ink that you have on hand because the stamps are so high quality. So I am stamping a little gathering of snowflakes on the top and on the bottom. I'm choosing to just use 2 different snowflakes, one large and one small, but the stamp set comes with 3 large and 3 small. So you could mix it up a little bit more if you want, or use any other snowflake stamps you have on hand to just create a little bit of interest in the background. Now, I also, in retrospect, would not be stamping this on my mat directly because while it does clean up easily, and you see there that I'm wiping it away on my mat, I did get a little bit of red ink smudged onto my fingers, and therefore I got red ink smudged onto my sentiment panel and onto my coloring panel. And in the final card, there's actually a little red smooch on the kitty cat's bottom. And I've decided that it's not that noticeable and just to go with it because I know that the card will still be appreciated, and if anything, maybe adds to the idea of this cat being mischievous and playing around. So I'm going to use a little bit of Scotch foam tape to pop up the stocking cat and the sentiment. I think that the stocking cat is important to be popped up because you want him to be resting as if he's really hanging from the strings there. I just laid it out carefully, thinking about where I would need to put the foam so that it didn't overlap with the string, because if I had put a little bit of foam over the string, it would look kind of lumpy. So you just want to take that into account as you're adhering it down. So now I have the basics of my card all put together. I need to just do the finishing detail touches. First, I'm going to take my scissor and scrape up a little bit of that glue because while it will dry eventually and it will be matte, I just didn't want any little clumps there at the end. Then I'm going to take some regular Scotch tape and tape down the little frayed edges of the embroidery floss to the back of the card. And I would even trim those off a little bit towards the end. They will cause a slight bump when you add adhesive and adhere the panel onto the card. So just think about that when you're adding adhesive, that you want to make sure you don't create a lumpy edge. And I also want to add some details with some stickles here. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be putting them around the fuzzy part of the stocking, and I'm also going to wind up putting them on the green edges there. And so after I have all of that assembled, this is the largest of the small stitch rectangles, and you can add a very simple border to it by adding a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel underneath it, and we'll give this very thin edge that's just enough to add some pop and to tie in that green from the stocking. Lay it all on a white card base. I applied all of the same principles to create a second card with the other image from the set. I think these cats are really, really cute. I could see them being used together or separately like I did here. I did separate them just so you could kind of see a different idea, because I think the most obvious thing would be to use them as a cute little collection. And so I hope you enjoyed this card. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more Christmas cards, and I'll leave links to the products in the description box below. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.